Splat!
Oh, sorry. You're gonna have to excuse me this week. I'm very tired, haven't had much sleep. You ever play a game where you just get so addicted to it that you just can't stop no matter what time in the morning it is? And then when you finally finish the game, you then go through a kind of withdrawal, and it leaves you feeling a bit slow.
Well, that's what the new game from Guerrilla Games did to me, Horizon Zero Dawn. Not a fantastic title for a game despite the relevance to the plot, but does that even matter when the game is as good as it is? I was extremely happy to see the ecstatic screaming and positive attention towards Breath of the Wild, but when picking between two equally big games to review for the sake of time, I let everybody enjoy the new Zelda and didn't want to add anything more to the conversation. Enough was being said in my opinion. So I played it safe, didn't break the bank on a Switch, and decided to try out Horizon, which I knew absolutely nothing about, but ended up loving it.
Saying all of this though, there has been constant comparison between Horizon Zero Dawn and the new Zelda, and I'm not saying for a second that that isn't a thing you can't discuss, don't get me wrong, discuss away, but in this particular video, we aren't doing that today. This video will be a review on Horizon Zero Dawn as it is on its own. I'm not going to be comparing what it does better than Zelda, and I'm not going to be saying anything about what the new Zelda does better than this. This is of its own design. And by the way, there will be spoilers, major spoilers, in the next couple of minutes. So if you don't want anything spoiled and you want to be surprised, I'd suggest you stop watching right now.
Horizon Zero Dawn follows the tale of a girl called Aloy, who was born under extremely controversial circumstances and therefore cast out by the entire world of humans living in an extremely distant future of planet Earth, where in a sweet mix between a zombie apocalypse and the Terminator franchise, robot dinosaurs and nature dominate the planet and ultra high-tech gadgets are now relics of a forgotten past. Taken in by Rost, another outcast, she is raised by him under the orders of one of the matriarchs of the Nora tribe, despite the fact that the rest of the world and even the other matriarchs see her existence as a dark curse, and she is discriminated every single day by every person that she ever meets. She learns to survive day by day independently alongside Ross with the help of a piece of technology she accidentally discovers called a focus, an ancient relic but one that gives her extended perceptive abilities and allows her to scan and store information instantly. The day comes where she's old enough to try gaining acceptance into the Nora tribe so that she can ask the matriarchs about her birth and why everybody hates her, but after winning a proving tournament to get her acceptance into the tribe, the only person who ever loved her like a daughter is killed in an ambush attack orchestrated by a suspicious man who has the same focus as she does. She figures this out after waking up from being knocked out in the attack and is brought to the holiest sacred Nora mountain to heal, much to the dismay of every other matriarch apart from one named Tirsa. Within the mountain, a huge and mysterious door that has never ever moved finally starts reacting, but only to Aloy's presence, yet she can't actually open it herself, and so she's sent away by the matriarchs, now appointed as a highly regarded seeker, to figure everything out and get the truth behind the technology, the machines, and her origins, giving her free access to travel all over the lands, but not necessarily any friends. So within the first few hours, the kickoff threads of the story are to find out what's behind that door, how and why the ambush attack was accomplished with the man with the other focus, why these robotic dinosaurs are roaming around killing everybody in the first place, and how Aloy was born and why she was even seen as a curse in the first place. It does begin with a lot of bombshells, but still manages to not only thread all of these together with no gaps or leaks, but also manages to keep sprinkling more and more fascinating world knowledge from every local you talk to, and it lets you discover more that adds interesting depth and sometimes scary revelations from how you come across ruined skyscraper sites and find the text and voice documents that they contain. And of course, when you stumble across a harsh mechanical hell pit in the middle of a luscious landscape, what is it doing here? Why is it here? What happened to the tanks and the radars that you see scattered around? How about that guy that helped that weird cult kill Rost in the first place? Where was his focus from and how did the others access it to see what he was seeing? It's brimming with mystery and is always keeping you guessing from showing you details constantly instead of explaining everything to you. And like I said, there's even elements of religious cult conflicts that are fighting for different deities that might actually be more real and horrifying than you could have assumed, alongside a strange and funnily sarcastic figure hijacking your focus in the last third of the game appearing to help you out.
How tragic to learn you're a person of towering importance.
There's so much awesome sugarcoating and it makes the main quests always entertaining as well as engaging and challenging. I love how the futuristic unbelievable stuff is actually in the distant past and how everyone has seemed to devolve without the obvious use and benefits of newer technology. And I love how tribal tattoos are now all circuit diagrams and computery, while ugly, blocky and rusty pieces of rubbish left behind by the old ones are often regarded as beautiful. All of the beginning plot points are not only great drives alone, but also way more realistic than most other open world games because you actually can afford to get distracted with the side quests. There's no contrived story reason for your character to quickly sort things out and rush around and then you just disregard it and do other things. Apart from the few ending missions, of course, when shit then goes real and there's a massive climactic rush to sort everything out before the world fucking ends, apart from that. And if anything, the side quests and other characters you decide to help give you gameplay benefits and seem realistic against the fact that Aloy wants to gain the trust and support of everyone around her who still see her as a curse. You're not just doing shit for the sake of doing shit. The voice acting is really great for the main characters, with maybe only 3 or 4 characters I met in total that were terribly wooden. And it does take a little time for the gameplay to flourish while Aloy is a kid, but for the time leading up to adulthood, the scenes do set a beautiful yet dangerous and helpless mood that is transitioned perfectly once the shift in age and gameplay comes around. And once she grows up, Aloy herself is a total badass, starting as naive but slowly growing in confidence to being a total warrior with a good sense of humor on the side. Not taking the shit of the other people that once outcasted her but now desperately need her, and not scared to laugh at herself over the irony of that fact. She may not be as witty or charismatic as someone like Nathan Drake, but she still gets incredible lines.
Hades only chose you because you're a fool. A sadistic butcher too stupid to see you were being used. Your whole life was a failure, and soon no one will even remember you. Turn your face to the sun and think about that.
And talks to herself about how she hates certain weather, or pretends to call "look out below" to people who aren't there when she's scuffling down a hill. I do wish that Rost stayed in the story for a little bit longer, since he was such a cool-headed and lovable character with a great relationship with Aloy, but I guess the personal stake in the story was needed alongside figuring out the motives of the evil cult, why they are controlling the current machines and awakening the worst of these older machines hidden underground, and the origins of the hellish devil transmissions that they're receiving alongside everything else the story wants you to uncover. But what I really loved uncovering were the funny names. Aloy is like Aloy, lol metal, Rost is like roast dinner, Bast is like breast, Resh is like rash, and the Karja tribe I like to call the car journey. Not to mention, as you reach the last point, I believe the mystery massively pays off. It doesn't just give you straight answers, but instead answers one thing and then brings forward another thing until you're begging to find out every final detail up until the end. And I loved how the story unraveled itself like that. By the ending parts of the game, the voice acting really fucking shines through the audio diaries of the old ones while at war with these older machines that have been buried underground that they created hundreds of years ago. And the voice exchanges of families talking to the soldiers in the midst of a world extermination were heartbreaking and exceptionally performed, along with the amount of apprehension, fear, and desperation being so well conveyed in those diaries and written entries. Even sarcasm and blunt ignorance of how big the problem was is spooky to hear while you're rummaging through the gruesome, chilling aftermath, along with the mocking of a character called Elizabeth from centuries ago who tried to save the world despite everyone thinking she was insane. And every single question I had personally was answered, not in an awful expository way, but all through discovery, and were all answered in very unexpected ways to make the final parts of the story easily the best. The fact that there were older machines built for nothing but war and then glitched out to replicate until every bit of life on Earth was extinguished and nobody could stop them, and that's what caused this massive world extermination hundreds of years ago. The fact that Elizabeth and the old ones spent months building a complex AI called Gaia to activate once all the humans were dead to regrow the entirety of nature, along with creating all of the machines that you've been fighting in the wild through the whole game, actually doing nothing other than clearing up the pollutants from the last war. They were never evil, just defending the planet. The fact that this AI was programmed to also virtually give birth to a new race of humans and raise them unexposed to the world underground, torturing them for years until they were let out free to reproduce and start again. The fact that this devilish transmission getting in the heads of the cult tribe is actually another AI called Hades, built to exterminate the entire system in case Gaia gets it totally wrong. The fact that a virus was detected within the system of Gaia, meaning that Hades was awoken for no reason at all and ends up being the main cause of the evil corruption of every robot around you, and so Gaia stored genetic data of the woman that invented her, Elizabeth, so that she could essentially be born back to life as Aloy from within another machine on its own in order to unlock every door for the future and access every system to fix everything if it should all go wrong. Hence why everyone saw Aloy as a curse in the first place, because she was literally born from a machine out of nowhere, which no one had been doing for centuries. Along with the fact that the reason humans weren't born without any prior knowledge of the world or a plan about what to do in this new world was because some bastard who initially built the first wave of pure war machines that went wrong killed the scientists who sorted all of that stuff out, because he felt the humans would be better off starting off from the very beginning, not knowing about any of his mistakes. Christ, this is such a brilliant story. Everything seems to have been thought of, and the fact that you start uncovering more about Elizabeth to the point of even finding her dead body at the very end of the game let through some incredibly emotional scenes, even though you never meet this person in the game face to face. She feels like a mother figure to not only Aloy, but the world around you with what she sacrificed, and the epilogue ending may have been a little bit sequel baity, but I honestly don't care in this instance, because everything the story does with itself and the way it's told, I bloody adored, and I think it earned a little bit of a teaser at the end.
But you know, none of this means anything if the world around you is lifeless and pointless, and luckily, Horizon might not have the biggest, absolutely ginormous open world you'll ever see in a game like this, but the amount of stuff that it piles into it, all the interesting and valuable and important things, gives it way more depth, and it makes it feel more alive than half of the other games I've played with an open world that are bigger than this one. It's not just big for the sake of it, and because of that, it truly is an unforgettable world.
It is big though, and like I said, there is a lot of stuff to see, with settlements all at different levels of civilization, with all the different regions that house completely different scenery, from snowy mountains to swampy jungles and deserts. And it's just the right size for traveling, with the unlimited sprint and ability to ride particular machines once you find the hidden ability to unlock their brains and override them. And because of how absorbing the world around you is, you never realize how far you travel in spaces of time, and it's always a pleasure to run or ride around, even if the distance is a little bit longer than usual. Or you can fast travel, fucking whatever. But it really is one of the best looking games I've ever fucking seen. Despite the fact I didn't play it on my PS4 Pro in 4K and chose to go for higher frame rates, it's still easily in my top 5 best looking games ever, and I don't dare imagine how amazing it must look in 4K. The way that sunlight and moonlight is used to glisten, create shadows, and perfectly reflect off every blade of grass, spread rays through thick jungle trees, bathe the different landscapes in deep, moody shades of red in the early morning and blue in the dead of night, and how it rises behind every phenomenal mountaintop left me audibly shocked dozens of times, and the weather shifting can create some of the most epic and incredibly alive moments I've ever recorded from a video game. Everything from stormy encounters while battling a giant bird enemy for a long boss fight, to one of my brain overridden crocodile enemies protecting me against another crocodile in a deathly sandstorm. So fucking epic. Crafting stuff is a thing like any game like this nowadays, but picking up the resources is not only more than essential, with different rare resources growing everywhere, but also extremely quick and well spaced out, so you aren't stopping every couple of steps to loot a crate. And with one tap of the button, you just pick something up and you're off again. And even if you don't have the money or resources to craft a health potion, you can always just top up your portable health bottle that you carry around with medicinal herbs that you pick up, a little bit at a time. And since you'll be crafting arrows more than anything in this game for your combat and everything, the fact that you can just open your weapon wheel, move to the weapon you want with the ammo type that you want, and then hold the X button to create groups of it at a time in slow motion and then get straight back into the action was fucking slick. You aren't babysitting Aloy in this game, you're scavenging in the wilderness, and everything you craft is important, from health and resistance potions, ammo for your bow and other weapons, along with materials to trade with merchants and craft carrying capacity extensions. Exploration is laid back and sight-soaking, or just as difficult and rewarding whenever you feel like making it so, especially since the machines all behave like actual animal counterparts in very unsettling and unnatural ways, leaving them in packs and settling grounds that you can raid or run and stealth your way around. By the way, using deforestation tools to graze and fuel themselves with natural elements was a freaky detail, along with them limping close to death. Random encounters aren't too often and usually only are with 2 random machines at a time, and at any point your exploration is never impaired by these robots unless it's part of the missions where you need to destroy them. Do you see something cool? Well, I'd say 9 times out of 10 you can follow your curiosity, only to be restricted a few times by stupid cliff faces and the occasional invisible wall for some reason that I still haven't figured out. Look, there's an item there to get, but I actually cannot reach it. But even then, it's just as quick or easy enough to find alternate routes around and continue onwards. And everything you find rewards you with more valuable resources and more secrets and surprises about the world. It doesn't force you into any upgrade trees either, and lets you play at your own pace with minimal interruptions on the HUD. And the focus mechanic I thought was brilliantly integrated. It's not overpowered since it slows you down to a crawl, it's never an obstruction, and it's not like Witcher senses in The Witcher 3 where there's a weird effect or anything like that. Also, unlike Witcher senses, everything you choose to scan and highlight actually ends up superimposed on top of the world around you until you deselect it, and it looks so awesome and natural, and like I said, doesn't get in the way of the rest of the gameplay or visuals. Not to mention it does have tons of uses, from scanning documents, distant signals, clues in crime scenes, tagging enemy locations MGS5 style, and even highlights walking paths of some of the enemies so that you can strategize traps and stealth approaches to certain situations. It even shows details and weaknesses for machines incredibly briefly so you know where to use your arrows and particular elemental attacks against. The only major thing about the exploration I wasn't a fan of was the climbing. It was a little bit too hard in places to see exactly where you could climb, and when you do start climbing it doesn't feel very natural or very fun, and the only thing saving it is the fact that I never randomly jumped off a cliff face accidentally. It keeps you locked in nice and tight.
And of course there's a lot more to the gameplay around that, and it might not be overall that innovative or deep. It's nowhere near as deep as other like action RPGs out there. I wouldn't even say this was an action RPG and more just an action adventure. But it tackles open world design in such a streamlined yet challenging way that it's really hard to ignore it.
The combat was a nice change from typical guns and guns and guns. It's very tribal, yet with techno twists here and there. That, and it's balanced really well to not keep you overpowered with ammo carry limits and crafting materials constantly needed to craft extremely strong ammo like tear arrows to rip armor off. And even lowest level enemies like the first watchers you see are never a pushover, even once you discover their one-hit weak spot right on their eye. Melee combat isn't built to be instant with your button tap, since that isn't the point. Melee here is saved as a last resort for close range, to stun particular enemies, to stealth kill and jump kill from above, and critical hit a downed enemy for huge damage. And if you do want to combo somebody, you have to plan each swing before recklessly rushing in. The machines themselves all have components that you can collect for crafting or trading and can be obtained by ripping them off with arrows without even killing the machines. But if you do rip off parts, it also reveals more weak points to make some enemies potentially explode when you hit them in the right places, which makes combat not only way more satisfying, but also skill-based, and always different in every encounter depending on group sizes and the environment around you. And even the fact that bigger machines actually attack you with completely different weapons and methods depending on what components and armor you decide to rip off means that the machines evolve the more they get damaged, and that is so fucking cool. And the same applies to safely ripping off one of their own heavy weapons and using it against them. With killing them though, you do get way more rewards and inner core machine resources, but with the fact you can rip parts off and grab them and run away means you never need to get into intense, impossible battle situations unless you want to. One thing I loved upgrading into was the slow-mo though. It not only makes targeting body parts a lot easier and isn't spammable with how you have to wait for a full charge of it to work, but when I upgraded it to slow-mo every time you jump or slide, it made me execute some of the coolest fucking kills in the game and made me feel a total rush of kick-ass in my veins. One of my favorite pastimes in particular was jump slow-mo slaughtering the wildlife for animal skins and bones. Like I said earlier, it's not necessarily an innovative game, but one that tackles open world design so well and simply with a few original ideas to nowadays cliched inclusions to these games. There are Ubisoft-style towers in the game and I can hear everyone groaning, but firstly, there aren't that many of them. Secondly, are represented as living giant robot, giraffe, dinosaur, Power Ranger UFOs called tallnecks, so that's just incredible and magnificently graceful in the areas that they are in. And thirdly, they are way more exciting and thrilling to climb up since they are what they are, obviously, and each of them has different things around them preventing you from reaching them easily, whether it be saving one of them from being captured by bandits, solving a quick puzzle to reach it, or platforming your way to a decent vantage point in order for you to leap to its body. And yes, there are camps that you need to recapture and then use as safe places in the future, but they always are incredibly fun to go through because of the tribal combat mechanics, tight ropes to snipe from, rope sliding from high areas and the stealth system, stealing other people's heavy weapons to turn into a complete monster for a brief moment, and also they all actually have story significance and contribute towards a pretty cool side quest with one of the coolest and most aloof and mysterious characters in the game. It's also so damn cool to stumble into friendly or rival tribes wandering around, only to then have the friendly tribes spot machines in the distance and then have you decide whether you want to help them or leave them, or with rival tribes spotting you, only to then be stampeded by machines that they alerted as they try to juggle killing them and you at the same time while they're all being thrown around by snapmauls, stalkers, or bellowbacks. It's also great to report that you can be adventurous and go off the beaten path, which I did a few times and got killed once or twice because of that. But oftentimes I said no to the game and decided to go out of my comfort zone into a machine encounter 10 plus levels above me, and I didn't have nearly as good weapons and armor that I needed for this fight. This ended up into a long and grueling battle that I would eventually end up winning, and the XP and machine core rewards I got from that encounter being at the totally wrong recommended level made it worth it as much as the unpredictable and fiercely brilliant fight I got myself into. If I never wanted to get into a fight though, I avoided the machines to grab the quest related and tallied collectibles, which I thought were awesome. Finding pollinating metal flowers or broken mugs from companies in the past is cute for completionists, and of course they add to the captivating world. And doing other things like completing the metallic factory-like cauldrons where the machines are constantly being made, where at the end you unlock the ability to hijack more types of machine to fight for you or ride on. With this level of freedom, I was geared up with so much strong shit that I was on a level 12 story mission by the time I hit level 26, and for the full effect, I highly recommend tinkering with the settings to make it feel more like an adventure by turning the compass off and running wild. The streamlined approach that I mentioned earlier is expressed through how the interface, currency, trading, item amounts, and weapons work. It's not anywhere near as expansive as The Witcher 3 or a Souls game or anything similar, but it's ridiculously user-friendly. It's so easy, quick, and gratifying to use, it's perfect for first-time open-world players, but deep enough for veterans to get through with no issues. And it's great to see how that seemed to be a consideration. Whenever you pick things up or trade items, the total amount of things that you had appear on screen in a real-time tally to let you know if you should waste any more time collecting those things. You get color-coordinated symbols above loot places to give you an idea of what kind of resources are there to stop you wasting time on things you don't think you'll need to loot through. There are much smaller numbers on damage output to make it so much clearer how much damage you're actually doing, and it's immediately obvious how weak attackable areas are, how effective certain weapons are, and the same can be said with the amount of metal shards, that's money, that you need for items. Items to buy have extremely small numbers for metal shards that you need, but are proportionally valuable despite being in smaller numbers. It's not like you find hundreds of thousands of these things all over the place, you do find a couple at a time. Because of this streamlining, the whole game is built in such an addictive way that it's one of the first open world games for a while that I felt like I wanted to finish as close to 100% without a guide as I possibly could. I managed to find every single collectible, did as many side quests as I could, leveled up every single upgrade tree, and it got me tens of hours of pure awesome gameplay from all of that. The only thing I wasn't fond of here were the tutorial missions. Like, they're optional, that's not the point, but they are treated as side quests, like removing armor with that particular weapon that you get, or knocking enemies over with that particular weapon you get, etc. And they give you big XP bonuses for finishing these quests with every new weapon that you collect. But you can't just have them going on in the background, and you constantly have to turn them on and off whenever you come across enemies and keep on track with your other quests. And of course, a few quests really don't add to anything and just pad things out on occasion, but luckily not by much. One quest in particular about a stolen sword goes on a huge wild goose chase, but is never really that interesting, and you never feel like you're doing detective work as you run and talk to loads of different people you don't know, not knowing what's going on or why you should even care about a damn fucking sword in the first place. Then I remember about the awesome quests, like spending the entire game looking for extremely rare and hidden power cells to unlock the most incredible force field armor in the game, and I immediately forgot about the few ones that didn't really interest me. And not that it caused me any deaths or anything, but being able to use potions through the inventory pause menu would have been appreciated, since you have to scroll through the quick select during combat, in between whistling for your horse and throwing rocks being in that same quick select menu. It's not like Mighty Number 9 though, it's just the left and right directional buttons to scroll and the down button to use, and it's clear to see what each selection is and what it does, but still, I don't know why you can't use these things through a pause menu. It's a little bit off-putting on occasion.
And I still have more to say, for fuck's sake, I'm never reviewing a big game ever again.
One thing I did love was how there were main quests, side quests, and errands. They're all named then when appropriate, and they all match realistically with the idea of not rushing around to the end of the main story. Side quests are actually quests with little story arcs and memorable characters, and errands are the gathering and hunting missions you come to expect from games like this. They're a lot shorter, but they give you very quick rewards. And even if a bigger quest has a fetching element to it, there's always an interesting mini story to complete, from finding and eliminating criminal bounties, all with their own unique ways of stopping you by using an army or hiding in a funhouse cave system full of explosives taunting you in the distance. There's a quest involving a conspiracy for a brother to kill a sister with a machine attractor to inherit all of his father's fortune, and even one like Romeo and Juliet where you have to step in and help the tragic star-crossed love not commit suicide over her dead partner from another tribe. And how about the one where there's a village full of strangely docile machines? What's causing that and why? They're all very well thought out, with locations and islands to discover, with many survival challenges ahead, especially if you take them at your own time that you want and encounter new machines that you never expected to see. And there are so many types of machines that are all so different to fight and all extremely varied. And the rich and vibrant visuals make them all the more spectacular to fight, with tons of flames, sparks flying, ice clouds forming, and explosions galore, all without ever slowing the game down and always looking fucking marvelous. Some machines go invisible and snipe you from a distance so you can't see them with your focus. Some are way too fast, some spit fire at you, some fly and drop stuff at you, some can scan you if you're hiding, and they all physically react to your different attacks towards different parts of their bodies in totally believable ways to make them feel like a perfect part of the world and like they're seriously engaging with you. There's always a surprise around every corner, and if you do turn off the compass and such, it makes all those surprises all the more astonishing when you all of a sudden stumble into an ancient ruin underground, collect all of the secrets within, and then exit it onto a fresh sunrise. As if stumbling onto the cauldrons on your own to unlock the hijacking ability on machines, the cauldrons themselves changing the gorgeous outdoors into a space-age platforming gauntlet with combat encounters everywhere in a huge cave-like metal structure, and still with their own secrets and treasure troves hidden in their linear tests. And another awesome surprise I ran into was when I was riding towards a main quest line, but all of a sudden got attacked by a giant Thunderjaw machine firing missiles and lasers at me as I frantically escaped on horseback. It was terrifying and I didn't want to fight the thing, but it felt so bloody good. Another neat detail, without ever telling you, depending on who you finish certain side quests with, who you meet and who you keep alive in those side quests, characters from those particular side quests come back to help you in the final encounter of the game. Awesome. It's probably the only real time the choices actually mean something, even if the ending is possible without any help at all. It is also cool how you can get involved into side quest battles and stuff while just looking around and exploring, and unknowingly finish them off without talking to any NPC first to activate the quest, only to then find that NPC that was going to activate the quest later, who you then share your experience with and let them know that you did what they were wondering about. Every corner of this game has something valuable, and there's no abundance of shitty pointless little items that you can't sell or use, and there's no complicated process for awesome weapon and armor upgrades. Just find the compatible attachment and tinker around with them. And like mentioned previously, you don't just get gameplay benefits, but world building benefits with most of the quests and collectible hunting that you do. The world building I found really phenomenal, especially for a brand new IP. Even with the collectible hunting, usually a redundant thing that only rewards you for finding everything in other games, actually lets you trade with special merchants the limited items around the map that that you find, but lets you trade groups of items within each type of them so that you get instant rewards a lot faster instead of finding everything and just getting one thing in return, or a trophy or whatever. My favourite things to find though were the high-reaching vantage points, where you not only got a neat bit of treasure, but also unraveled a tiny part of a bigger side story from the past that can be figured out once you get every single bit of it and piece it together. And the only thing quest-wise I think was slightly impacted by the streamlined design were the choices you could make in dialogue. They never really give you much choice to simple questions in some cutscenes, and when you are asked for opinions, they don't really massively change the outcome of anything other than how the person speaks to you for the next few sentences. Which is a bit of a shame. I mean, with rivaling tribes and everything, this could have been a bit deeper.
All things considered though, especially for a brand new IP to go against and sell alongside the new Zelda, I can't believe how well this game managed to pull it out of the bag, especially for something brand new. It was a courageous move and one that massively paid off if you ask me. And yeah, it has a few flaws here and there, it's not perfect, but the universe it builds and all of the evolving and exciting gameplay around an open world that never ever gets old after dozens of hours of playtime basically makes me can't fault it that highly for the things that it does slip up on. And it is awesome how every single looted item does mean something in one way or another. And it is awesome that the game doesn't rely on an autosave system every 5 seconds, so death actually feels like something you have to go to campfires and save your game. And even the fact that regenerating health isn't a thing, you have to heal yourself. Just stuff like that, the big stuff and the little stuff, makes this game what it is, and I'm gonna give it a fucking solid 9 out of 10. If it's your birthday today or watching this video, happy freaking birthday to you. Please remember to stay beautiful. There's a fucking digger outside. Thank you.